The strange encounter. I was born with several disabilities, a wide range of conditions, ranging from mild to complex. I was an only child for a few years, until my siblings were born. My parents were Christians and, despite my birth, their love for God never wavered. As a kid with disabilities, I faced a lot of challenges. It was hard for me because I had physical limitations and sensory sensitivities. Often, I had trouble participating in activities my peers could do easily. However, my parents' unwavering love and support helped me overcome most of these challenges. My father loved God and he always told me, "Child, stay close to God. In Him you will find peace and healing." I was young and naive. I didn't understand what that statement meant. Nevertheless, I followed my father's advice. As a child, I would often sit alone in the garden and sing hymns for hours. I had very few friends due to my disabilities, so I spent more time singing and talking to my family. All along, I never felt or saw my disability as a hindrance or a problem. As far as I understood, I wasn't different from other children. I kept hope alive. I got close to God because my father told me I would find peace and healing. I hoped for a miracle to be healed someday. I was the happiest kid in my neighborhood. Other children looked at me and never understood why I always had a bright smile despite my disabilities. I recall sometimes while taking a walk with my parents, as I sat in my wheelchair, the sky seemed to have a strange shape in the image of a human smiling at me, assuring and confirming God's love for me. With time, our back garden became my favorite spot. It was my happy place. I could stay there for long hours singing and praying. I had fellowship with God. Later in my teens, my life changed dramatically. I lost my father in a car accident, and within a short space of time, my mother followed suit. I was torn into pieces. I didn't have the time to mourn my father, and then my mother was gone too. I retreat into a shell, struggling through that difficult phase. My heart was shattered, and my fellowship with God gradually dwindled away. It wasn't until then that my deformity hit me. Where was God when I lost my parents? Why should I serve God when I wasn't getting healed? I questioned. As the days passed, I felt useless and a burden on myself and on the world. I got so annoyed with myself. My temper was on a short fuse. I sometimes snapped at the silliest things. Then came the thought of taking my own life constantly. As far as I was concerned, suicide was the only solution. Sometimes, I felt strange presence so strong. I would hear a voice asking me to jump out of the window of my room or hurt myself with a kitchen knife. The voice was so loud and clear, but no one else could hear it except me. The first time I tried to end my life was in my mid-20s. At this point in my life, I had completely stopped singing or having that special moment with God. I just lived through the day. The essence of life had gone out the window. I tried several times afterwards, and suicide seemed the only way out of my misery. One day, I was in a mall with my cousin. We had finished shopping when she remembered an item. She ran back to get the item while I waited in the car. As I sat in her car waiting, a man walked towards me. He looked hungry and homeless. I thought he wanted some money, so I pulled out my wallet to hand him something. He looked at me and smiled. There seemed to be a glow in his eyes. His voice echoed with every word he uttered. He called me by name and asked why I had tried to take my own life on several occasions. He said a few other things about understanding my pain since my parents' death. He reminded me about my happy place in the garden and my father's counsel about finding peace and healing in God. We spoke for what seemed like hours. He prayed for me and told me to return to my happy place. Although I was shocked at first, we began talking like old friends, and he no longer looked like the old homeless man. He had a comforting smile that assured me that everything would be fine. I enjoyed our conversation and wasn't conscious of my environment. All I wanted was the peace and relief I felt while speaking to this strange man. As I listened to him speak, my cousin returned to the car. I turned my face to look at my cousin and introduce her to the strange man. However, when I turned back to look at the homeless man, he was gone. My cousin had not seen him. He had disappeared into thin air. As my cousin tried to convince me that I was daydreaming, I knew what I saw and heard. What I saw and heard was the turning point in my life. At the end of the day, I realized that I was not incomplete because of my disabilities, but rather I was incomplete without God.